Your cybersecurity solution is here. Introducing Pentester's Advanced Cybersecurity Suite. Ready for peace of mind? Try it for free. No credit card required. Pentester.com.
You know, I started hanging out with my father. We would always go to the Ravenite on New Year's Eve when O'Neill was alive. We would always start out at the Ravenite. We would always start out at my father's bar, Bulldogs, in the 70s. The only story I ever really heard about anybody being blackmailed was J. Edgar Hoover was being blackmailed by the mob because, you know, he was gay and he was in the closet. And, well, true. I mean, in the golden age of the mob, I mean, I know when guys went to jail, people looked out for their families. I know if you owed somebody money, another wise guy money, the money, it was stopped. Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Ruggiano Jr. I want to welcome everybody to Reform Gangsters podcast. If you like our content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Also, it would be great if you became a Patreon member. That helps with the content and with the programming. So please become a member. Also, it's going to be a private chat, you know, stuff that's not going out anywhere else. It's just going to be on Patreon about my life and my experiences. I have a busy month coming up this month in January. I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling. Next week, I'm flying out to LA on Wednesday, the 10th. I'm going to be doing some shows out there and also meeting with a Hollywood production company. So I'll be doing The Connection. I'm also going to be doing Cinemas TV again with my cousin Gene. The two of us are going to be guests. And I'm meeting with a production company that's interested in doing a life story of mine. So that's all going to be interesting. Also, the week after that, I'll be going to Tampa. I'll be going to Tampa to do Michael Sapor, a Czechoslovakian podcast. So that's going to be interesting. And then on January 24th, I'll be flying up to New York to go to Michael Francis and Mike Tyson's show at the Beacon Theater called Remade Men, which is going to be very interesting. I'll also be doing a meet and greet at 6 p.m. If you're interested in doing that, I'll send you an invite. Please contact me, email me, Anthony Ruggiano Jr. at gmail.com. And I'll give you the location where that's going to be. Also, I'm going to Pennsylvania to do the Zapata brand podcast when I'm up in New York. So it's going to be a busy week, a busy month. Hopefully, it'll be all great content and you'll all enjoy it. So I have an announcement to make as far as my YouTube podcast goes. Moving forward, I'll be putting out all my private content about my life on my Patreon to my private customers because, like I said, I'm doing business now with Hollywood to do a life story, and I cannot be putting out the content about my life on YouTube. So that will be on my Patreon channel. So please subscribe to Patreon. You'll get all my private stuff on there. I will still be putting out stuff on YouTube, just not stuff about my personal life and my personal stories, but it will still be good content. But if you want to hear about my life and my personal stories, you would have to go to Patreon for the near future. Thank you. And this week's Get to Know My Viewers poll, it was how do you celebrate New Year's? It was 54% stay at home and watch TV, 37% don't care, go to sleep. It was 1,200 people voted. 8% said go out and party. This year for me, I actually did go to sleep before 12. I spoke to everybody earlier and wished them all a happy New Year because I had to get up 5 o'clock in the morning the next day on New Year's Day to go work at the detox. But in the past, we celebrated New Year's always in our neighborhood. We never left our neighborhood because we used to call it amateur night. A lot of people out there driving drunk, dangerous fights. We never ventured out of Ozone Park on New Year's Eve ever. I don't remember my whole adult life when I was living in New York did I ever leave the neighborhood on New Year's Eve, ever. We always had our own private parties in our own bars or in our own home. But this year I actually stayed home and slept. You know, I started hanging out with my father. We would always go to the Ravenite on New Year's Eve when our Neil was alive. We would always start out at the Ravenite. We would always start out at my father's bar, Bulldogs, in the 70s, and then later on Cafe Liberty. And we would always start out there in the mid-afternoon, and then we'd drive into the city to the Ravenite, and we would go there for a few hours, and then we would go to where we were going to have our own New Year's Eve parties, mostly back at the bars we owned in Ozone Park. Bulldogs, the Polish National Hall. I had a big party up there one day. We always stood local, and there was always a lot of fun. We always stood out till the next day. It was a lot of partying, a lot of, just a good time.
Speaking of Cafe Liberty, I just texted you a picture. Was that the inside of Cafe Liberty?
Yep, that's it. That's exactly it. Where'd you get that picture? Oh, that was in the Daily News, yeah. Yep, that was it. See if there's any pictures of my father hanging on the wall. That was and you can't really see it all the way in the back. My father had a marionette machine. That's it. That's Cafe Liberty.
All right, so in the news is Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, he's got a history of sexual blackmail. Compared to the Mafia, have you heard, like in The Godfather, they set him up with the hookers, and they video of him. Any stories you've heard of like that, like blackmailing guys?
The only story I haven't really heard about anybody being blackmailed was J. Edgar Hoover was being blackmailed by the mob because he was gay and he was in the closet, and he denied the existence of the Mafia for years and years and years. He never even prosecuted any of them because it was always, the rumor was that they had pictures of compromising pictures of him in gay clubs, private gay clubs, and that was always the rumor about him. Later on, that all came out that he was gay, and and he did actually go after the mob at one point, but that was the only rumor I ever heard about anybody being blackmailed. I don't know of any personal stories of anybody being blackmailed. I'm sure it has happened, but I don't know of any. I mean, as far as the mob and prostitution, we weren't allowed to be out and out pimps. You know what I mean? Like a pimp on the street. But what we did was we shook down brothels. That's what we did. I mean, that's what my crew did. We shook down brothels. Like when we knew there was a brothel in Jamaica, like we went there and we extorted the woman that ran it. And but we weren't actually pimping the girls off, but we did extort brothels. And we extorted services, escort services, and we did do that. The Russian mob, they actually had at one point in the 90s strippers. They were servicing strip clubs with strippers. They would bring the strippers to the club. They had a strip club, a stripper service. So was there blackmail involved in some of that? I'm sure there was, but anything to make money, right?
Yeah. When you say shook down, like what was that like? Was it weekly? You collected envelopes? Who went and did it? Like describe that.
Yeah, it was mostly with us. It was monthly. Sometimes it was weekly, but it was mostly monthly. And we put people to work there, like as doormen and bouncers. And we actually put a gambling machine in there for people that were waiting in the waiting room to gamble in. We put like a slot machine in there and a joker poker machine in there, whatever we could do to make some money out of the place. We never shook the girls down. We only shook the owners down.
Do you remember what kind of numbers you were collected?
Oh my God, it was crazy money. It was, a couple thousands of dollars a month. I mean, they were gold mines back then. It was, it was just, they were right by Kennedy Airport. So you had all the people, all the truck drivers, all the cargo people. It was just, it was busy. It was open, 24/7. She had girls coming from all over the country to work there.
In the golden age of the mob, when you got locked up, the mob supported your family. True or false?
Well, true. I mean, in the golden age of the mob, I mean, I know when guys went to jail, people looked out for their families. I know if you owed somebody money, another wise guy money, the money, it was stopped until you got out, the payments. And I know, I could only speak for the people I was around. I know that we looked out for people that were in jail. Yeah, I think that's like an individual crew type thing, like I can't answer for the whole mob, but I know we did.
And what about when guys got out of jail? Were they like, did everybody, the crew give them envelopes? Did they collect while he was away?
Yeah, no, people, yeah, they, whatever businesses you had going before you went in continued, people took care of them for you. Yeah, and they brought your end to your family, and it was still there when you got out. Nobody, yeah, no, that it stood. You didn't lose anything unless I mean, unless that's how it used to be. It turned like different when I was away because when my father died, the scumbags that were left out there took everything because but because they couldn't find gold in a gold mine, they didn't know how to create anything, so they just took shit. But other than that, no, it used to be good.
Do you recall many get out of jail parties like Billy Bats had?
First of all, that was Hollywood. That's number one. And yeah, I had coming home parties. I mean, we all did. We all had coming home. Yeah, I know a lot of guys. I had, I had a coming home party in '80. I had a coming home party in '92. I had a coming home party in 2004. Yeah, that's for real.
Where were they held at?
Well, in '70 and '80, it was held in a bar. It was a big party they had for me in a bar, the Polish National Hall in Ozone Park. The second one in '92, when I got out, we went to Don Pep's for dinner on Lefferts Boulevard. We had a little party in there. And in '04, when I got out, it was at my house in Comac with my family, basically, because I couldn't be around any of my friends. I had a restricted list. I couldn't be around any felons. I was on supervision, so I couldn't invite any friends over. So I just had all my family there.
Did you know any wise guys that were known to ride motorcycles?
Yeah, Johnny Caniglia. He used to drive a motorcycle. He loved it. I believe he even used to take it once in a while to the Ravenite just to break balls. He was a big ball breaker, John. Yeah, he rode a motorcycle.
So motorcycles were frowned upon in the mob?
Well, I mean, they weren't frowned upon, but he's the only one I ever knew that had a motorcycle that was ever straightened out, that had a motorcycle. I don't know of any other ones that had a motorcycle. Sports cars, but not motorcycles.
Do you think it's harder for a 300-pound gangster to be called Fat Tony, or a
Harder?
or a 5'5" gangster to be called Little Nicky?
No, I mean, people that had nicknames, most of them, it didn't really bother them. I mean, it bothered Nicky. Nicky didn't like being called a little guy. When I got indicted with Nicky in Florida, that was his, when we were on the phones, when we were talking to people that had wires on, which we didn't know they had wires on, we always referred to him as the little guy. And when we got indicted and he read that, he wasn't too happy about that. When he said, like, what do you mean, little guy, little guy? He might have had a Napoleon complex, but he wasn't happy about it. But other than that, people really didn't mind nicknames.
Is it true that turned down being straightened out because he was already making $100 million a year?
I think that answers that question. Please. Please. Oh my God.
In the Goodfellas Bamboo Lounge scene, did Fat Andy have a brother named Mo Black?
No, absolutely not. And he never, ever, ever had a mustache. I think Henry did that for spite because he knew my father didn't like him. And he knew he had to mention his name because my father and Tony Lee were such good friends with the Varios and such good friends with Jimmy Burke and such good friends with Tommy. I think he had no choice but to mention Fat Andy's name. But I think No, no way, never had. No, that's not true. Not true. Not
So you
true at
think
all.
it might have been a dig that he had,
I think it was. I think if Henry had anything to do with it, it was a dick.
especially because it was the crooked cop,
Yeah.
Caracapo.
Well, we didn't know that at the time he was crooked. He was. I think he was retired at that point when he did the movie. He was trying to become an actor. Besides him being a cop, I mean, first of all, my old man never had a mustache. He hated mustaches, hated them, or beards. I mean, I grew a mustache when I was a kid in jail, and he threatened never to come visit me again if I didn't shave it off my face. I was bored. I grew a mustache, and he visited me, and he went crazy because I had a mustache. So there's no way he ever had a mustache. He didn't like mustaches, and he had no brother named Mo Black. Didn't even know anybody named Mo Black. Never mind had a brother named Mo Black.
Was there Jimmy two times?
I don't remember a Jimmy two times. I'm sure there was, but I don't remember. I mean, as far as the Goodfellas crew is concerned, I knew Paulie Vario. I knew his brother Tootie. I knew his brother Babe. I knew his nephews Vito. I knew his son Junior, Vito Jr. I knew Tommy, of course. I knew Tommy. I knew Jimmy, the Bamboo Lounge, the owner of the Bamboo Lounge. Danny. I knew Danny Bamboo. I mean, I knew them guys. I knew Danny Cateo. I knew Bruno Fasciola. I mean, I knew a lot of guys in this crew and Paulie Vario's crew. Pete the Killer. I knew many of them. I don't remember a Jimmy two-time, but I'm sure there was. I just don't recollect it. If you enjoy my show, please join my Patreon. Ask your questions live, and please join my Patreon at reformgangsters.com.
So somebody asked, who would play a great Fat Andy? Suggestions were Jonah Hill, Zach Galafnikos, I'm probably butchering that, or Jason Momoa.
None of the above. I don't know who Jason is. I'm trying to picture his face.
He was Aquaman.
No, definitely not. He's too big, too tall. Yeah, no, none of the three. I know that's a tough question even for me to answer when I think of it. It's got to be somebody that's like 5'10", stocky, full head of dark hair. And don't forget, later on in life, my father had throat cancer. He had his larynx removed when he was 50. When he was 60, about 59 or 60, he had his larynx removed, and then he talked from his esophagus, and his voice was very froggy. So his voice changed because he had no voice box. He went out and they had to teach him how to talk again. So I don't really know. That's a tough question, even for me to answer right now. Anyway, when the time comes, I'm sure the right person will get cast.
And what about yourself? They wrote in suggestions for Andrew Garfield or Miles Teller.
Andrew Garfield or Miles Teller? I don't know. I don't know. Miles Teller, maybe. I don't know. He's not bad, I guess. I don't know. Maybe Johnny Depp when I got older. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Why did Tommy Karate kill Greg Ryder?
That's a good question. I don't really know the reason, but Greg was a good guy, a good friend of mine. He was a good kid. I did business with him. I knew his father well. His father was a good guy. Always treated me well, liked his father, liked him. I saw him almost every day until he got killed. He used to come to, our office in Jamaica, Queens. We had the number business in Jamaica. We had all the number spots throughout all Jamaica, and he had machines in all our locations. We gave him the contract. We had our own vendors. But we gave him the contract because we liked him. He was a good kid. He was close with me and my friend Carl Amato. I don't really know the reason. I believe, from what I understand, it was over drugs. But for me to speculate on that, I just would be speculating. It was a lot of different reasons from what I understand, from what I heard, not what I understand, from what I heard. But I believe it's centered around some kind of drug deal.
Do you remember the last time you saw John Gotti?
The last time I saw John Gotti was probably a couple of days before he got arrested. I would say. Probably the week he got arrested was the last time I saw John Gotti at the Bergen Fish Club. I saw John at least once a week. Like I said, before John was the boss, I was a fixture at the Ravenite. I was there twice a week from 1971 until John became the boss, until Neil died. I was there twice a week on Wednesdays and Saturdays. When John became the boss and the Ravenite exploded, people from all over came to the Ravenite. You couldn't get in the door. It was ridiculous. And none of us from the neighborhood appreciated that, because people were coming out of the woodwork to be up his ass. Like people that I never even saw before walking around, like they were like who the fuck they were, like they were big gangsters. They were jerk-offs. They just wanted to be up John's ass. It turned me off. It turned Tony Lee off. But people got to understand, the Bergen Fish Club was in Ozone Park. And I'll repeat this again for all the haters out there that want to say that, I'm full of shit. I lived in Ozone Park. I was brought up in Ozone Park. The Bergen Fish Club was in Ozone Park. I went to the Bergen Fish Club at least twice a week with Tony Lee. I drove him there at least twice a week. On Saturdays, John had lunch in the Bergen Fish Club when he was the boss. And we went there almost every Saturday to the Bergen Fish Club and had lunch. So I saw John pretty much on a daily basis. Did I do business with John on a daily? No, he was the boss. Did I socialize with John? Yes, I did. So I saw John probably the week he got arrested. I probably saw him that week at the Bergen Fish Club. And when he went to the Ravenite then on holidays, I would go, on holidays, or very sparingly would I pop into the Ravenite after John became the boss. It wasn't the same no more for us when John became the boss. The Ravenite wasn't the same for us. And that's when all the surveillance took place, which really didn't matter because we still all got arrested anyway, even though I'm not on any of those tapes in front of the Ravenite and people want to make remarks about, oh, where am I? How come I'm not under surveillance and all that bullshit? Because I wasn't really there often. But, if you read the articles, when I got arrested in 95, on the front page of the Daily News, it said John Gotti's crew. Everything time I got arrested after John became the boss, his name was part of the publicity or part of the indictment because we were associated with him.
What was Pizza City, the big bow wow, and were they mobbed up?
Okay, well, the Bow Wow wasn't mobbed up, but the owner of the Bow Wow was a butcher from East New York. He happened to be good friends with my father and Tony Lee. We used to go there often. When I was a little kid, we used to go there. That's another thing. Like I always knew that something special was going on because as a little kid, we would go to the Bow Wow and the owner would make a big stink over us when we walked in. And when I got older, I found out the reason. He was actually a butcher from East New York, the original owner of the Bow Wow. And he from his butcher shop in East New York, he opened up the Bow Wow, and that's probably why they had great, hot dogs and roast beef sandwiches, and because the guy was naturally a butcher. As far as Pizza City is concerned, I knew the owners of Pizza City. I believe they were mobbed up. I mean, they knew everybody. They lived in Howard Beach. I knew one of the brothers. He was friends of mine, so I would say. Yes, they were mobbed up.
What was it, and did you shop at Aqueduct Flea Market?
Well, I didn't shop there often, but my first wife, Alice, she lived in Aqueduct Flea Market. So I would have to answer that question saying I personally didn't shop there, but a lot of my money was spent there. She was there all the time, every weekend. So I just want to send out my condolences to Jackie the Nose's family. I knew Jackie. He was always a gentleman with me, classy guy, always well-dressed, a sport, debonair guy, smooth, very smooth. I never did business with him, but I know, I was in his company many times. Very nice guy, very close to John Gotti. I know he's the guy, I believe, that straightened out Mikey Scars. I know Mikey was very fond of him. I spoke to Sammy about him, Sammy the Bull about him. Sammy had good things to say about him. Very close to everybody, just a bait around, just a nice guy, big earner, a lot of money, big earner. So, he'll be missed by his family and his friends. As far as YouTube, so we all know the drama of the day is Joey Molina. This is probably the last time I'll talk about him. As we all know, I believe he's going off YouTube. One day I heard he's going off, then I hear maybe he's not. But, he's going off YouTube and going on Patreon. I don't know who's going to subscribe to his channel. I heard it's $14.95 a subscription. I know he has about 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. We'll see how many of them go over to Patreon. But, he's saying he's getting off YouTube because he's not getting monetized and because he curses too much. And he had this big thing about giving out bikes and turkeys and presents, and he got this guy out of prison that did 40 years that was innocent, and YouTube banned the whole show, wouldn't put it on, shadow banned the whole show. Like I said earlier, and other things, I'm not going to badmouth the guy. I mean, I spent the night with him in the 90s. I'm probably the only one out here on YouTube that actually met the guy personally. When I was in the street, his crew was my idols. I mean, I loved what they did when I was in the street. They took over a city. They were all my age, a little younger. They ran the show, through intimidation, fear, violence. They stuck together. They did it. They did it the way it was supposed to be done in the street. And when I was in the street, I looked up to that. I gave them their due. Now on YouTube, I don't know what he's doing on YouTube. I don't know what he's trying to do. But I think, and I'm not talking for YouTube, I'm only giving my opinion. I guess it has to do with his personality. He's kind of gruff. He curses a lot. He smokes a lot. But I think they know where he's at. It's all about manipulation. I mean, the guy's doing this to, poison the jury pool, against everybody cooperating, that's just my feeling, put enough shit out there, you poison the jury pools. I think somewhere in his mind, he thinks he's helping the guys that are still in the street by doing this. I think they think this might help them down the road. I don't think it will. And I think YouTube knows that. I think YouTube knows he's still maybe an active member of the mob. Maybe the FBI got to them. I don't know. But there's a reason why YouTube isn't doing the right thing with him. And I think it's more than him just cursing. But like I said, I think we need to have a little class on YouTube. I think Mikey Francis has a lot of class. He says things very artistically and very classy. He's an inspiration. I try to keep it a little classy. I don't, try not to curse, but sometimes it slips out. But, we'll see what happens on his Patreon. Okay, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to my Reformed Gangsters podcast. And don't forget, I have a lot of new content coming up. I'll be doing a lot of traveling this month, doing a lot of new shows and a lot of new things happening. Stay tuned, become a Patreon member, and stay safe and healthy out there.